Greetings. Welcome to another version of Rasta Now, Staccato monologue from a Rastaman point of view on the issues of religion, society, and social relevance. Yeah? Okay. So, today, Sunday, November 23rd, 2025, we're going to talk about the Bible. This piece is titled, The Bible is Kemetic. At its roots, it's not European, it's Kemetic at its roots. And then the first thing we're going to look at is the etymology as some of the most important aspect of the Bible, right? Etymology is the history of words and and origins of words and the context where words were created from, specifically. So you get a better understanding of what the word means today, right? So etymologically, this is a kind of tongue twister, right? So etymologically, the Bible is Kemetic. Now, some of you might not have heard the word Kemetic, but it comes from Kemet. And Kemet is that area in Africa that stretches from the Levant all the way up to modern day Ethiopia. One people, one language, one culture, right? That's Kemetic. And that's where civilization began. Now, they have pinpointed it down to the point and say, well, civilization originated in Ethiopia. Ethiopia is the oldest known civilization, and Ethiopia gave the world civilization, right? That's what they say. But it wasn't just Ethiopia itself, because Ethiopia and what is now called Egypt is one place. It's one place, and it had one culture, all right? And it had one language, Haramic. And from Aramaic came Arabic and Hebrew, or whatever they call it. All right. Um, Aramaic is the root of all what they call Semitic language, the root. So that came down into Egypt. And as you know, human being shifted sound pronouncement of words into what they now call local dialect. And the local dialect transformed themselves into religion and into new language, right? When the Greeks invaded Kemet, they changed the name to Egypt. So Egypt is not an African word. It's not a Kemetic word. It's Greek. So when you talk about the history of Egypt, you got to stop at the point where the Greeks invaded Egypt and somewhat, according to them, conquered Egypt. You got to stop at that point, right? Everything before that was not Egypt. Everything before that was Kemet. And what we found is that what was before Egypt has been preserved and has not been able to be completely deciphered or has been deciphered but covered up by so-called Egyptians. The modern day Egyptian don't understand Kemet because it's not his culture, it's not his language. He don't have a clue what is being said. The Greeks knew what was happening. They tried to translate it into their own belief system. They adapted some stuff. They adapted some principles and some tenets, but they didn't have the full deep thought understanding of what we were doing in Kemet. They didn't. All right, they flipped the switch and said, we in Kemet were the barbarians. And so they come to conquer the barbarians. And it so happened that the barbarians were intellectually more adept as to the makeup of this reality. We, the barbarians, the so-called barbarians, knew more about this reality more than them. And up to today, we still have a clearer understanding of this reality that they don't have. Right? So everything before the Greeks so-called conquer Kemet remain a mystery to them. And if you listen to the so-called Egyptologists, Flanders Petrie and the rest of them, even to this new one, Zawi, who claims him is a foremost Egyptologist. All right, he is an Egyptologist because he have to stop at the point where Greek so-called occupied and conquered Egypt. Everything before that, him don't have a clue. Because he can't say Tutankhamen was an Egyptian. He was not. Tutankhamen was Kemetic. His language was Kemetic. His way of life was Kemetic. Ramesses was not Egyptian. These are Kemetic people, the land of the blacks. That's what the word means etymologically. Right? So we know then that Egyptology begin with the conquer of Egypt when it was overrun by the Greeks who came with a certain amount of wickedness to kill and maim and murder men, women, and children. It wasn't just in the Bible about Amalek. This is a particular way of doing plunder. And we see it. We see the European has employed this over and over and over and over. It's plunder, everything dead. Everybody dead. Dog dead, cow dead, baby dead, animal, all kind of animal, place burned down, women and children. And some of the women, them the young women, them you clear them away and keep them as slave and breed them up. So we know basically that the Greeks came and they employ a certain amount of barbarity. And we in Kemet, gradually over a period of time, we're talking about thousands of years, we're not talking about yesterday and 2 days ago and a week ago. We're talking these things happen over a long period of time. We gradually receded into the depth of Mother Africa. We receded into the womb of Mother Africa. And they could not follow us. And they did not follow us. So we left Kemet for them. And they come across Kemet and they realized that Kemet was this magnificent civilization. But they didn't understand it. They didn't have a clue as to what was happening. Some of these guys that came to Kemet to study, the so-called Greek philosophers that ended up in Kemet, were still students. They never reached the stage of masters and to understand what this reality is all about. They don't have a clue what this reality is all about. And if they do, they hide it from the masses. They hid it. And they adopted some kind of religion based upon what they saw in Kemet. The gods, that wasn't organic to Greek philosophy or Greek thoughts. And it couldn't be just something that the gods were out of context. There's nothing to connect it to this reality. Nothing at all. Apollo and Zeus and Hermes and Aphrodite. Nothing to connect it. But in Kemet, being able to explain this reality to the point where we could have an understanding, there was the Agdod, the nine. And these are not anthropomorphic gods, but these were particular principles that have to have been created and exist before this reality could come into manifestation. Simple, very simple thoughts. For example, you need space for anything to occupy, for anything to exist. Space had to be created conceptually and actually. So, you know, you have the axiom that says no two things can occupy the same space. So space is extremely important, and space is divine. Not outer space, but the whole concept of space. Space within your own structure, space between the molecules, space in your veins. It exists everywhere. There's no complete solid anything. Even in a steel, there is space between the molecules in a dense property, like even uranium and lead. There is space between the molecules. The space is important. Moisture is important. Breath is important. Right? But space created time because to move from one point to the other point is measured in time. Not just distance, but in time. Right? So the Agdod, which is the nine principles that we see and in Kemet and say these principles has to exist before reality could be manifested. And we see these principles not as the creator, but as principles, aspects of creation. And so we say these are gods. But these are not gods that you worship, because in Kemet, we have no translation of the word worship. There was no worshiping in Kemet. People might say, oh, no, there weren't any worship in Kemet. Right? And everything in Kemet have a scientific explanation, a deep scientific explanation that is so simple, people don't want to look at it because everything's supposed to be deeply complicated that the regular Joe cannot understand it. And that's not what it is. That's not what it is. Right? No, listen to this. There are so-called Egyptologists who will marvel you about the scientific advances in what they call Egypt. Scientific advancement, you know, brain surgery, they knew about germs, they did circumcision so that young boys wouldn't pick up germs, they knew about heart disease and they knew about diabetes. There was one mummy who had a false eye and all kind of things like that, right? So Egypt was highly scientific. Now, where did they put these scientific terms? Where did they write their science? Because science is only knowledge, basically, scienta, according to the Greek, to know. Right? Where did they put them? Where could you go and see them and understand what it was being done? I experimented and explained. And it is what was later transliterated and confused to be called the Bible. The Bible, right? The Bible. That's where you find Kemetic scientific knowledge. Simple. I'll give you one clear example. I believe it's Matthew. They say, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word took unto itself flesh and became man or God or whatsoever. In Kemet, the Creator at one point was designated as the mouth. As the mouth. And when you read Genesis and you hear them say, and God say, that's the mouth. So the mouth is the whole source of creation. And God say, let there be light, and there was light. That means if God didn't say, let there be light, there wouldn't be any light. So you see it come back on 360, right back to Kemet. When Kemet was saying, or depicting the creator as the mouth, and they switch it now and say, God say. But why did Kemet depict the creator as the mouth? Because the mouth create energy out of thoughts. Sound is energy. A sound wave. When you're like a youth and your mother shout at you, you could have feel the energy and it quake you up. And when you hear soft talking, it you feel the energy. So the word and the mouth is a source of energy that is created from thoughts. You think the word and you bring the energy of it into existence. So what Kemet is telling you that reality started from metaphysical. It started from the mind. And the mind created this reality. That's all it's saying. Right? Now look at this now on another little level, right? Scientifically, right? There is one theory of creation. Science can call it scientific. There's one scientific theory of creation that they call string theory, right? And they're saying that there is these little strings that is vibrating, and that's according to them, this is the beginning of reality, or the beginning of physical reality. These strings vibrate, and during in the vibration, bring onto itself matter, and then eventually became full matter, right? But these strings can easily be identified as sound waves. Because when you see a sound wave, it's a string. It is a string in the terms of the string theory. So you see how far we reach? Thousands of years ago, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,000 of years ago, We analogize creation with the mouth because we understand that the mouth create from nothing, from thoughts, and create energy from thoughts. Somebody take that now and transliterate it and put it in a simple talk, like it's guzum, how would I call it, magician. When that's not what we were saying in Kemet. We weren't saying this. There's this man that just would talk and do all of that. No, we're saying the analogy is that reality came from the thought process. That's what we were saying. That principle is in Hindu, where they say the great mind. And you have some say that everything is the mind, right? In Hindu, they say everything is the mind. That didn't originate in India. We brought that to India. We brought that concept to India. But they held on to it in that corner without knowing the context, right? That's why they say, Ethiopia is the land where the gods love to be. And it's not that the Ethiopia have gods. It means that Ethiopia is the land where all of these religions originated from. All of them. And they are all transliteration, misunderstanding of what we were saying in Ethiopia, in Kemet. All misunderstanding. Right? So just from that one simple example, you see that everything in the Bible originated in Kemet. And there are other examples. Right? Now, the word Jew didn't exist before the 1600 because that's when the letter J was created. In Germany, they say ja. In the Romantic language, they say ja, Juan, Jose. They don't say J. They don't say Juan. So the letter J is English. So Jews is an English creation. The word Jews is an English creation. Now, what was the word before the hard J? IU. Two letters. IU. The ever coming son, which again is scientific base. It's not anthropomorphic designation only, right? It's scientifically based. So the IU Sahas, which would be the ever coming son, right, became Jew. England wasn't in the Middle East 4 or 5 thousand years ago. Europeans were, some Europeans were there, but they didn't speak English. Some of them speak Aramaic, some of them speak Greek, some of them speak regular dialect from them towns and whatever. But 5,000 years ago, there was no English J in the Middle East. There was no Jews in the Middle East. So you can't say we've been here for 5,000 years. There was no Jews in the Middle East 5,000 years ago. There was only IUs, IU Sahas. And IU is a Kemetic word. The IU is a Kemetic designation for the ever coming son. the promise of creation, the IU, not the Jews, the IU. That's Kemetic. Judah, that's again English, and it's Kemetic for Ayutah, the land of the coming sun, which is basically human body. The place, Ta in Egyptian is place, and the IU is the land, is the coming sun, the ever coming sun. The IU is the ever coming son, the Messiah. The Messiah, they would later call him. Right? So a lot of people get it twisted. And I think they do it because the knowledge was not put forth to them. And they didn't think on simple terms because they want to make it complicated. They want to figure more or less say it has to be a complicated thing. All right? It has to be complicated. And they need a complication. Why do they need a complication? Who knows? But the complication cause confusion. Your life is simple. So just taking out the letter J and you realize that the Bible is Kemetic, not English or European, Kemetic. And the stories that they claim inside there, they are scientific. They are. Methuselah, who lived for 900 years, that's not Methuselah. That's a great year. That's an epoch that is measured in the stars. That's an epoch that's measured in the stars. And if you have not read it or heard about it, the Ethiopians have measured the great year, meaning that the North Star swings through 7 different star constellation in the sky, going left, and then coming back to right. And it takes 26 years for that because the North Pole swings through different constellations. Right now we're in what they call Polaris, heading towards Aquarius, as them call it. Right? We measured that. That's how long human being has been intelligent enough to understand this reality. Not yesterday, not 5,000 years ago. How could we exist 5,000 years ago and know something happened for 26,000 years if we didn't actually measure it? How could we know that the North Pole swings through 7 different constellations? We can't guess that it goes 6 and then it all go to 7. We have to see it go to 7. And it was measured 26,000 years. It was measured. We did that. And no modern man can tell you, yes, that is correct. So, things that you read in the Bible that you think is extant history, actual history, is scientific explanation. The God of the Bible that you think of could not be a particular human construct, a human being with human sensibilities and human characteristics. My God is a jealous God. That's nonsense. When you understand that it is creative forces that goes beyond good or evil, they just exist. The volcano is not good or evil. The volcano exists. The sun is not good or evil. The sun exists. The God of the Old Testament depicted as man manifests itself in its depiction as man as the devil. Because from day one, 7 days of the creation and everything after that has been destruction, death and destruction, murdering, killing, maiming, man, women, children, babies, cow, even the dog that piss upon the wall of Babylon shall fall, everything. So that could not be a human creation that is real. Couldn't. Couldn't be a human creation that is real. Right? It is something that was laid down before and man transliterated, man mixed it up with something that he needed to use to control people's mind. He needed to control human beings' minds with it. So he have full and complete control over them. And it began in Rome. This transliteration began in Rome. You see, I consider myself a general system theorist. And one of the basic tenets of general system theories is the autopoietic system, meaning that the system don't die. The system always find a way to recreate itself. The Greek Empire recreated itself as the Roman Empire. It didn't just disappear and gone and nothing exists. But the Greek Empire transformed itself, recreated itself into the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire didn't just disappear and die and fall, as most of us would want us to believe. Rome didn't fall. Rome transformed itself. The mystery now is, what has Rome transformed itself into? As a youth, me used to hear the rest of the man them talk about Rome, 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 Rome. And when them talk about Rome, it's as if them talk about the same old Roman Empire. And that's who they was talking about, the same old Roman Empire. And there was something deeply intuitive about how they approach this Rome thing, as if Rome still exists, but in a different guise. And Rome still exists in a different guise. We still are an empire, still being run by empires, run by empire and other empire, minor empire. But Rome didn't go. And Rome has used religion and finance to continue pulling people in ignorance about the Bible, because the Bible has become so potent and people have believed this story without understanding that it is Kemetic. Joshua is not Joshua, it's Ayushua. It's the same Ayu. Joseph is not Joseph, it's still Ayusha. No, not Joseph, Ayusha. You move the J and you get Ayu, the ever coming Messiah. And it is not a particular man that's going to come in a white robe and a 10-foot sword and chop up and kill and maim and murder everybody who didn't say, Jesus, my Lord, you are God. Nonsense. The IU exists in you. The IU exists in you. In the present moment. and beyond the present moment. And it exists in you on a metaphysical level. And that's what Paul saw. Not just the IU, but let me go to a different level then and carry to the other extreme. The Karast, all right? The Christ that these people talk about, Christ. That's not an English word. That's a Kemetic word, the Karast, that was used to depict Osiris, the dead, that risen from the dead. That's the Karast. And that exists in the human body and in life and in earth and in creation. Where human being can experience it within their own structure. The Karas, the Christ, is Kemetic. It was used to depict Osiris, Asar. The Karast was used to depict Asar. Now, when you go and you go to Google now and the Google AI, whatever, they give you what they want you to know. They give you what they think you should know. Well, you have to go around them now to figure out the truth. And the first answer you're getting now is from AI, and it is a structured answer to lead you away from the truth. Christ is Kemetic because it's from the root word karast, K-R-S-T. The Greeks pick it up and call it Christos. All right? So even that tell you it's Kemetic. Jesus Christ is Kemetic. I use as Christos. Karast is Kemetic. But what does it really mean? Scientifically, right? And people might not even be aware of this. Inside of your body, within the present moment, which is metaphysical, because as it comes into existence, it's in the past. There are cells dying and being recreated. So you are the embodiment of Ayusas Karas, Jesus Christ. There are millions of cells, billions of cells dying in your body every day, and there are billions of cells being created in your body every day. The dying and the resurrection is in your structure every day. Your organs replaces themselves, them say, every 7 months. Now, before the European could employ their style of science, which is to break things down to the farthest part and then try to build them back to see what it is, right? They didn't know this. They have no clue. But then break it down and realize that yes, cells die. That's what we were telling them thousands of years ago when we talk about Ayusas and the Karas, Osiris, Asar. And we give them the story that Asar was buried in a tree and his wife went and cut off his phallus, made love to it and create Eru. That's autopoiesis. Human body is a system. It is possessed of the autopoietic power to recreate itself regularly, daily. From metaphysical to the physical. Continuously within the present moment that is in the past as soon as it comes into existence. The Bible is Kemetic. The understanding has to be from a Kemetic point of view. Now you might want to say, hey, but man, how the Rasta man get there? Oh, we've been there. We're there. You might not see it, and that's what one of the things that the Rasta man is not seeing right now. The Rastafari is Kemetic. It is. Rasta is basically the place of the creator's place. Creator place. That means we lean towards creation. We always lean towards creation. We lean to the positive aspects of creation. That's where we lean. And when you read the book of Coming Forth with the Light, that the Egyptologists call the Book of the Dead, it's called Pert Hem Heru. Pert Hem Heru. Coming forth with the light. Heru is the light. It tells you that Rasta is that place that was created out of the goodness of the Creator's heart, meaning that it was created with goodness. It was created with to stay in creation, to stay on the positive side of creation, and that nothing comes into creation or leave creation, physical creation, without going through Rasta. Nothing. And we are the embodiment of that. That's why sometimes when the Rasta man you say Rasta can't die, them correct. But the flesh existed in time and place as to wither away. At some point, you have to give up the flesh. But you know basically that the energy that animates this flesh cannot be created or destroyed. It continues. Right? So believe me, uh, you go through the whole Bible and all you can see is Kemet. Famously, Paul said, he who does not believe that Christ cometh in the flesh is antichrist. Right? And people translate that to mean that there is an antichrist coming to murder everybody. And who don't believe that Christ cometh in the flesh is antichrist. That's not what Paul was saying. That's not what Paul was saying, you know. Paul going to Kemet and understand what was happening in Kemet. But the Roman Empire twisted it for their own benefit. But I was saying basically that whosoever not believes say the energy that causes death and life is in human being. That is happening in human being on a metaphysical level and a real level within the present moment and always. Is anti-life. Can't exist without it. His Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie made one very important, I would say, order. I call it an order now. And he said that you should read your Bible with a clean hand and a pure heart. That means when you take up the Bible, you read it like you've never seen it before, you don't know nothing about it, you block out everything, and you read the words that's laid there, and you understand what the word is there, and you use your own understanding, not what the preacher man stand up in a church and say. You're not reading it to confirm what the preacher say. You're reading it for your own understanding and your own clarification without bias, and you will understand. That is all about Kemet. Blessings.